Today I'm going to talk about meth, the summer that I lost my soul. So I had just gotten back from Job Corps. I was doing a merchant marine training program, working on tugboats on the Columbia River outside of Astoria, Oregon. And I quit Job Corps because I didn't want to be a grease monkey. I didn't want to work on engines, and I really didn't care about being stuck on a tugboat for 6 months at a time out in the middle of nowhere on the oceans. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a writer. So when I came back to the small town in Washington State, I was sober and I felt good. My body was back. I had just been, in a very kind of militant style training facility for 9 months, and I got my mind and my body back. But before that, I was living with a woman twice my age. She was supposedly my girlfriend, but she turned out more like a surrogate mother because I was a lost, angry young man. But one thing she taught me was about art and literature and poetry, and that's why I was with her for 4 years. But things got really ugly. I was blacking out every night, drinking red wine, and I got a little too angry around her, and she didn't like it, and then I left for Job Corps. So when I came back, we weren't together anymore, and I was placed in a 15-foot trailer on my parents' business property. And I didn't have any credit cards. I didn't have to pay rent. All I had to do was find food. And I started to write again on a typewriter, an old 1800s manual typewriter, because I wanted to be like the next Jack Kerouac and write on the road. A couple months living there, I discovered my next door neighbors. One of them walked by on a trail, and he looked kind of peculiar. He wore glasses, even on cloudy days, and his hair was frizzy, and he wore flannel. Typical Northwest grunge type look. And so as a writer, I was like, this guy looks pretty interesting. I'm kind of lonely. I'm not with that girl anymore. I need to make friends. And so I introduced myself. And he had 2 Australian Shepherd dogs. They're really cool. One had one blue eye and one brown eye. And he looked away when I spoke to him. And at that time, I was pretty confident, even though I had Asperger's growing up and I was shy and introverted. He was the one that looked away from me. He was about 10 years older. And so we got to become friends, and he invited me over to his place. So I got up the courage and went over there a week later and discovered that he lived in a kind of a crater in the earth, and there was all these broken down trailers in the crater, and he called it the hole. So I got into the hole and hung out with him, and then I was introduced to his buddies, his roommates. Basically, they lived in their own trailers. One guy, his name was Weasel, and he was a deaf hobo from Haight-Ashbury, and he spoke really loud because he couldn't hear himself. The other guy, they called him Animal because he had stringy, greasy hair, and he grunted, and he was like the animal from the Muppet Show. And so I was like, these guys are great. I am going to write about them. This is going to be my One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I can't wait. So I'd go over there with a tape recorder tucked under my coat, but they knew something was up because I kept looking down at my coat and I was acting weird. They could tell I was acting. I was trying to act crazy like they were, and they just didn't buy it. So I dropped the act and I dropped the tape recorder, and I just started going over there as myself. And then eventually the yearning to start drinking and being more crazy set in. So the 10 months of sobriety fell away because I started to drink with them. And slowly but surely I started to outdrink them, and I was starting to be a little more crazy than they were. And it was a wild ride. I used to drive them around in my car blaring Limp Bizkit and Korn, because that's what I listened to at the time. I just wrote about it recently, how nu metal helped my Asperger's. You can check that out. But so that was a lot of fun. And then one night I was pretty wasted, and I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. You know, I basically was lost in the hole. I couldn't find my way home. It was dark and I was wasted and I was getting tangled up in the blackberry bushes. And then all of a sudden, Sean, the guy that I met, introduced me to some meth. And so I smoked it and I instantly became awake. I was fully awake, instantly got pulled out of a blackout, totally drunk, to completely sharp mind, euphoric, blissful. The night is young, let's go party. And I got in my car and went downtown and went and bar hopped without those guys. It was just me, and I found some other friends and had a crazy night. But from then on, the second time he introduced me to meth, I smoked it in my place. By this time I was living in a converted school bus, so I upgraded from a 15-foot trailer to a 40-foot converted school bus. And he came over and we smoked it on some tin foil, and then he left. And I had about 2 hours of paranoia, but all of a sudden, all my childhood perversions came up. And you've probably heard stories that little boys and little girls want to discover their body parts and they play with themselves. Well, this was times 1,000. And all my little perversions of childhood came up into one crazy orgy with myself in one night. And I stayed up all night playing with myself until I was chafing, I was red and sore. And something happened though. There was a certain transformation with not only my body but my spirit, and there was an actual smell in the room that I created by playing with myself that I'd never smelled before. And it was kind of like, just the smell of meth is like, to me it smells like burning sweet roses. Bittersweet burning roses is how it smells, and it smells like chemical. And when you blow out the smoke, it's pure white and very thick. And I think that I was sweating out the chemicals during this one person orgy, and the whole bus smelled different. And what I was doing, looking back, I feel like I was conjuring demons. It's definitely a spiritual drug. Now, it does do other physical things, like you can have incredible stamina, you feel extremely horny, or the other things that happen. There's two types of people on meth. There's the people that get extremely horny, and then there's the people that take apart electronics, and they play with gadgets, and they take apart their cars, and you see their car parts strewn all over their yards. They're very easy to spot. But then there's the people that are perverted, and I fell in that class. But what I did was I felt like I had tapped into a dark underworld that I had never ever experienced in my life with alcohol. Even in my darkest days with alcohol, I had never experienced this type of perverted, wicked underworld. And of course it was very tantalizing. In fact, meth is very, very addictive, and the survival rate or the recovery rate is next to nil. We're talking, you have a 10% chance of fully recovering from a meth addiction. Luckily, I lived in a small town and I couldn't get my hands on it because I was already highly addictive. I had an addictive personality. I played with myself, I watched porn, I smoked cigarettes, I drank coffee, I drank, a half rack of beer every day, and listened to hard rock really loud to get that dopamine. I was addicted to everything. So meth was the pinnacle of all those addictions, but it was a very dark spiritual warfare. And after that night, I don't think I was ever the same. It altered me, and luckily I only did it maybe 4 other times. Besides that, I couldn't get my hands on it, and then I lost contact with those next door neighbors. Even Sean was crazy. When he was on it, he would go on bike rides at 4 a.m. with his dark fantasies, and he called it the witching hour. So there was this weird kind of underworld that we both kind of recognized when we were on it. And then we realized that there was probably thousands of meth addicts in the world that were up at 4 a.m. thinking really dark, wicked thoughts, or taking apart their radios and their TVs. And it just really seemed creepy and completely, I felt like a demon, you know, at one point. So the smell was different in my bus. I felt different, and I was dirty. I felt really dirty from the chemicals, even though they were exciting. It was the most beautiful lie that Satan could ever blow or whistle to me. And I fell for it, and I wanted more, and luckily I couldn't get it anymore. But something happened. It tainted my spirit, it tainted my soul. And so now, looking back, 20 years ago is when I smoked it. And looking back at that time, I wrote this in the New Metal article, that when I listen to Korn or Limp Bizkit now, I tear up. I tear up because those were wonderful times. I felt alive. I felt my youth. But after meth, it was just a dark downward spiral. Even though I didn't smoke it again, I was a drunk. I was getting drunk twice a day. I had a heart attack when I was 32. I could barely hold on to a job, and my body was failing me. But looking back at the new metal era and being 25, there was a beautiful time there. And those guys were a lot of fun. In the Hole, the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and they were a lot of fun, and I partied with them a lot with alcohol, a couple times with meth, but I'd always go home and be alone all night doing things to myself, and I couldn't feel pain. There was times when I'd go out into the snow naked, and I couldn't even feel the snow on my skin. So it was very wicked stuff. They used it in the World War II. The Nazis actually created meth, from what I understood, because it was the ultimate fighting machine supplement. They would give it to their soldiers, and they would fight all night, and they couldn't feel pain. And it's something I've never ever felt before, but it had a very dark, wicked, it was like the drug was completely connected directly to hell, to the source of Satan. And so when I smoked it, I felt like I was literally dancing with the devil. So if you want to get off of meth, my only advice to you is, it's not really a physical drug, it's a spiritual drug. So you are literally going to have to find God. You're going to have to find Jesus, and you are going to have to repent and ask God to help you in your battle against this wicked drug, because it's definitely not just a physical drug. It is probably the most spiritual drug I've ever done, and it's the greatest weapon that Satan has ever created. And it's getting purer and cheaper to get all the time. It's not even made really in America anymore. It's brought up by Mexican cartels, and you can get it super cheap, and it seems like everyone's on it, and mainstream's not covering it at all, because that's not part of their agenda right now. But a lot of people are on it. In fact, I talked to a guy here in Texas about getting a job. I wanted to get a little side hustle just to get out of the house and get my legs back under me and build some muscle and get a little extra cash. And he was like, yeah, I'll hire you if you're not on meth. I mean, he was like, I can't find anyone that is sober down here. And this is Texas. It's bad everywhere. So guys, it's a spiritual battle. I suggest that you get baptized and blow that crap out with God, because it's a spiritual battle more than anything I've ever dealt with. And when I listen to new metal, it reminds me of those wonderful days, but it's all an illusion. The party doesn't last forever. No matter what addiction you're into, it will take you down. The more addictive you are, the more it will take you down. I almost died. I'm here to say that I've been sober for 13 years, and you can do it. But I don't know if I could have made it if I found a drug dealer that did meth. I don't know if I could have pulled out. People that do meth consistently are dead in the eyes. You can see it, and it's a very hard drug to quit. So I pray for you guys. I hope that the Holy Spirit can come into your life and renew your body, renew your spirit back to its original, beautiful light being, love being self. I pray for you. God bless you. Hang in there. Leave a comment if you're battling any addictions or if you have Asperger's or autism. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll talk to you soon.